Welcome back to Reviews and Rankings with Robbie Sobel. Today, we're going to take a look at the 2025 film, Dangerous Animals. Dangerous Animals is a 2025 film, directed by Sean Byrne, starring Hassie Harrison and Jai Courtney. Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. It's been quite some time since, well, not so little Robbie was on the channel giving his thoughts on these movies, but as part of this rebranding and rebooting of the channel, I thought it was the perfect time to bring us back together, because if there's any movies that we really enjoy, it's these shark horror movies set in the summer. It just has a great vibe to it, and we wanted to bring that energy to you. Now, we saw Dangerous Animals last week with your sister, who will not be on the video. And we had a pretty good time, I would say, overall with it.
I thought it was fantastic. It was an awesome time, yeah.
All right, so basically the movie it's a pretty small scale movie, and it stars Hassie Harrison as Zephyr. Now, she's a bit of a loner. She's a surfer. She doesn't have many friends. You can tell she really doesn't have much family, and she's kind of just on the whim doing her own thing. And she meets a guy named Moses. They have a little one-night stand together, and in the middle of the night, he wakes up and she is gone. She decided to take herself down to the beach, enjoy the waves in the middle of the night, and kind of just do her own thing. Now, that seems like a solid plan. Someone who's a single girl, she's a loner. Nothing wrong with that. But the problem is, before she can get into the water, she has a bit of an altercation with a man named Tucker. Now, Tucker, he has his own business. He has a boat. He likes to take people out on the water so they can go down into the cages, swim with sharks, have this moment that they'll always remember. This is actually something that I've always wanted to do. You know that. I've talked about it before. Yeah. You're not interested in it. I am.
You, man.
After watching this movie, you're probably right.
Yeah.
Now, this altercation between Zephyr and Tucker becomes pretty deadly. He's not there to help her out in any way. He's there to capture her, bring her onto his boat, and that's where we find out that Tucker's got a sick and strange sense of humor and an interesting way to entertain himself.
Yeah.
What Tucker likes to do is take these women, set a camera up, film them, and put them into the water and watch them be eaten and torn to shreds by these sharks. Now, Tucker has a little bit of PTSD, I would say, because we do find out that when he was younger, he was attacked by a shark, a great white, actually bit him on his side, and he was lucky enough to survive that. But that kind of trauma that he has had, he's carried it with him all these years, and a way almost for him to kind of work it out in a very unhealthy, sick way is to have other people, specifically women, experience that. Now, what were some things that you liked about this movie?
First of all, Zephyr, she was awesome.
Yeah, she's a great final girl.
She was fantastic. I mean, the whole way, you already kind of like her pretty quickly. I think she's kind of built as likable, but then they retract on that when she leaves early in that morning, and you're kind of on the fence. But then you're quickly, right after that, introduced to Tucker. I mean, you're introduced to him prior to that, but she's introduced to him, and those characters kind of have their scene together, and things kind of go wrong pretty quickly there. So you're kind of torn back to her side now. And so I thought she was fantastic. She was so cool, and she's resilient. You see that throughout the movie. It's fantastic. I also love one thing we talked about right after we left the theater. We were walking to the car. We talked about how much we loved the sharks not being portrayed as just evil.
Correct.
Right. The evil's focused on Tucker rather than the shark just being some crazy wild beast that feasts on all the humans they see.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
I love that aspect of it. They were used as more of a tool for the evil rather than the evil itself.
That's a good point. So basically, what you see in most shark movies that come out, not all, but I'd say most of them, it's the sharks that come after the people. And then some of the wacky, crazier ones, they're, demonic sharks, or they're like super sharks, three-headed sharks. And that's kind of the gimmick that they use. But like you said, the sharks in this movie are used more as it's the weapon of choice by Tucker. And these sharks are just doing what they normally would do. And there's a key scene in the movie where we have a character in the water, and the sharks are swimming around him, and they kind of just swim away. They weren't really targeting him. And in this scene, to try to get the sharks more motivated, Tucker is throwing chum in the water, blood in the water, to get these sharks to go more towards their target. Just doing what a shark normally would
Right.
do. And that's a very good point that you bring up. So it kind of humanizes the sharks a little bit. Now, another thing what you said about Zephyr is, would you say she's like a flawed character? A
Well, I
bit
mean, she definitely. I mean,
layered.
yeah,
Yeah.
she has a lot of aspects to her. So you take this, she's kind of shown as having run away from home. She was like a foster kid, I think.
Yeah.
That was
Mm,
something that she mentions at some point. So she's had a rough past, and she tries to find her way of coping with that by going to the ocean. She says something along the lines of, "There's nowhere for me on land,"
yes.
and so she goes out to sea. That's how she becomes a surfer. She's, pulled towards that, and she stays away from people on land, of course. Um, and so I think you see that very real side of her character, but again, I think she was just super cool, and so I love her for that.
She was
Really,
definitely badass and
100%,
very resilient.
very much
And
so.
we mentioned earlier the guy that she had a little one night stand with. His name is Moses. Now he's a surfer also, so they were
Right,
able to bond with that, and
correct.
that's a very key element because as the movie goes on, Moses tries to find where Zephyr is, and I think
Right.
that bond of them not just surfing, but also kind of seeing where each other are in their lives at the time, they were able to become pretty relatable. And from what I was able to see, Moses doesn't have many friends either.
Yeah.
And because he himself is probably a bit of a loner, finding that connection is rare.
Right.
So because when he finally did find that connection, especially physically as they slept together the night before, that is something that brought them closer than he normally would be with anybody else.
Right. They're both in that situation where they don't have a lot of social interaction, maybe.
Yes.
Um, but he's working a lot harder for it.
Yeah,
He
he's
attempts to make
trying.
her breakfast in bed, and then that's when he finds that she's gone. He comes back and she's disappeared. So we definitely get to see both sides of both of the separate characters. I think that was cool.
And they did a good job humanizing them and making them
Right.
both relatable and have a good vibe and chemistry together in such a short period of time.
Right. Yeah.
Because by the
It
time
didn't feel unnatural at all.
no, not at all. By the time they got together, and by the time she was captured by Tucker, it was maybe 20 minutes into the movie. That might even be a little bit longer than it was,
Yeah.
15,
Right.
20 minutes, give or take. So to be able to build that kind of this natural chemistry in such a short period of time was refreshing to see, and it was easy to buy in. And once you can buy into a character, especially a lead character like Zephyr,
Right.
you're hooked for the rest of the movie.
Hmm.
Now, there are some gruesome parts in this movie. Now, there are moments where it's a bit lighthearted. We
Right.
see earlier on, we have a character who's a little bit nervous about getting in the water, and for Tucker to try to calm her down, he sings her the Baby Shark
Yeah.
song, and that's kind of this silly moment, but it's a little bit lighthearted. But I think it's important because when you have these lighthearted moments, we relax. We're kind of
Right.
watching the movie with our guard down, and then
Exactly.
bam,
Right.
they hit you, and those moments hit harder when you're not prepared for them.
Exactly, because that baby shark scene is right before they go in the water, and this is
Yes,
the very open. This is the opening
scene.
scene with the opening characters, and it's this girl from I believe it was she from the UK,
Yeah.
somewhere in the UK, and she's there with some guy. They're both very young adults,
Hmm.
and they go in the water. They have a great time. After she's very nervous, they come out of the water, and as the guy is thanking her, you're relaxed. This is a very positive scene.
Yeah, definitely.
Tucker, he stabs him,
Yep.
and it cuts pretty quickly after the girl screams, right, and it was just a really attention breaking kind of thing. You're sitting
Yes,
there and it's just like whoa,
it does.
and
It
then it
hits
cuts
you,
to our main characters, and I thought that was really cool opening scene, and it really sets the stage for what to expect, kind of.
and it's good for that scene as well because we see that girl later on.
Right, yeah, she's a very important character.
Now she's an important character because Tucker just wants to get the men out of the way. He really has no
Right.
interest. He wants to be able to use his power over women.
Right.
So the guy in the beginning who gets offed and killed, he's kind of just thrown to the side. But that woman who was captured early is used later in the movie. Zephyr wakes up in a room. She's handcuffed to the bed, and then this other woman is right there opposite her. And that's when we finally get our big scene, our first big scene, out on the boat. and she's lowered into the ocean.
Right.
Chum is thrown in, blood is thrown into the water, and Zephyr
Mhm.
has to watch this as that shark comes and devours her.
Right, and I'm happy that that character. I'm happy that she wasn't just used only for the opening scene to
Yeah.
introduce Tucker. I'm happy because what she does is her character, after she's eaten alive by these sharks, that scene is used to kind of really take a deep dive into Tucker's mentality because we see exactly what his method is, and then right after that, we're kind of shown like not exactly why he's doing it, but there's not really a great motivation. I feel he's kind of just crazy, right?
A bit, but we also see that he's been doing it for a while because
Right, and that's what I'm getting at with this.
yeah. So
Is
we
he's
have the scene where he's eating
right,
and he's watching the videotape of that girl getting eaten,
right.
and
That's
then
what
we
I'm saying.
see that he has dozens of videotapes.
Right,
This
that's
is
what I'm
something that
saying.
he's done for quite
It's
some
that
time.
deep dive into the character. We see
Yeah.
like he's been doing this for a long time. He keeps these tapes, and he even cuts their hair, and he'll
Yes.
keep some of their
That's
hair,
yep.
so he marks which one's which, and it was really interesting to get that character insight.
It definitely was. Now there are multiple times in this movie where it feels like a cat and mouse game,
Yeah,
where Zephyr, you feel like she's going to get away, and then she gets pulled back.
right.
We see Moses come to try to protect her, and he gets the best of Tucker at first.
Mm-hmm.
But fortunately for Tucker, he gets a little helping hand from an old man who we see previously in the film, who is just an older man out on the yacht who wants to help him kind of be part of his shark diving tours.
Right,
But he has no idea what Tucker's up to.
exactly.
So he comes in and kind of saves Tucker, un- unknowing that
Mm-hmm.
Tucker is this crazy man. And when he realizes the craziness of Tucker, Tucker treats him like he would any other guy that's getting in his way and completely offs him.
Right.
Now, we do kind of have a few moments where you think something's going to happen and it doesn't. Now, when they first bring Moses out on that boat with Zephyr, they kind of go to put Moses in the ocean, we think that he's pretty much going to bleed out from his altercation earlier, but he
Right.
doesn't. He stays alive.
Again, I think those characters still they were used so optimally. Is that the correct word? I
Yes,
loved how much they brought out from the character and how they were used to push the narrative. I think that was really good
I
and
totally
strong.
agree.
Yeah,
I totally
the
agree.
resilience, like I said, we see from both of them. I think it speaks volumes. It was really interesting to see that resilience go up against someone of similar resilience but an entirely different motivation.
Is there anything here that you would change? Or is there any negatives about the movie that kind of stood out in one way or another?
Right. So I definitely am someone who mostly focuses on the positives in movies,
Hmm.
especially ones like this where I'm really going into it just expecting a good time and having
Yeah,
fun. You mentioned earlier the cat and mouse game feel. It kind of felt a little bit ridiculous.
too much.
Right, because it
Yeah.
was constantly she's gonna get away, no she's not. She's getting away, no she's not. Um, and I understand for me again that suspension of disbelief.
Yeah.
I don't let that break me too much, so it didn't really bother me.
But you would cut down a little
I
bit.
would probably pull back on that just a little bit.
Hmm.
I'm not sure what you would substitute it for. I mean,
Mm.
like I said, they did a great job developing characters and the story. Um, Maybe pushing a more societal message. I don't know. Like I don't want
Hmm.
to sound like
Too preachy or whatever. Yeah.
pretentious,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
don't know another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they could have had a little bit more uh, character building of Zephyr in early on. Maybe a little bit
Right.
more of her with Moses, possibly.
Yeah, that's a
You know,
good point. Right.
you could have fleshed it out that way. Now the movie ran about an hour and 45.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
it could have easily been a 90-minute movie if it cut 10 minutes out of it
That's true.
and just took one or two of the cat and mouse scenes
Right.
away. Now, for me, I think the only thing that really stood out for me was for most of this movie, anytime they showed the shark, which wasn't too much, and
Right.
most of it was underwater, the shark looked fantastic. There were times where I kept thinking, are these just underwater shots of real sharks?
Hmm.
Because it didn't look CGI, it didn't look phony
Right.
at all in any way. It really looked like a shark was on the screen. And I
Hmm.
appreciate that because, like we said, in so many of these other kind of cheesy horror movies, that's one of the biggest downfalls is that the sharks are CG. They look so fake and it takes you out of the movie.
Right.
That's not the case for this until the very end. Now, the movie ends with Tucker, the Jai Courtney character, being pushed into the water. And in a somewhat predictable ending. We kind of knew that this was the way it was going to end up going, since this is how he tortured
Right.
all of these women, that it would have to come around to happening to him in return. So he gets eaten by a shark, but you see this shark kind of come up to grab him, pick him up in the air, and the shark looked, I don't know if it was like a composite on top of another image. It didn't
Right.
look good. It
No.
looked like one of those cheesy sci-fi type movie sharks, pretty close to it. It didn't even look like he was moving much. It was like just one
Right.
still image. I don't know if was the intention to be that silly. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it was. Maybe Sean Byrne, the
Possibly.
director, did that. I know he had done an interview not too long ago where he spoke about how every shark movie has to have a scene where the shark jumps out of the water.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think that's
I
totally
don't
the
think it
case,
did.
but I get where he's coming from. A lot
Hmm.
of them have that, but it just, that stood out so much because for
Right.
90% of the movie, the shark, when they showed it, looked really, really well done. And then the ending, where it's like your big climax, you're ready for it. It's a cool ending. You're kind of going, huh? Did you run out of money? And
Yeah.
was there like a strike with your digital effects team, and you couldn't finish the editing of it? That's what it felt like.
Right.
But because the other 90% of the movie was so effective and well done, you kind of just give it a pass.
Right. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's workable.
Like I said, I kind of approached it with the I want to go here, have fun kind
Yes.
of mentality. So it didn't pull me out too much. And I get a lot of times with the shark movies, you want to have that big wow kind of thing, but I think it didn't need it here
Yeah.
because, like we said, it wasn't like the shark was the evil. It was the tool. It didn't
Exactly.
really need that, I don't think.
He could
Um,
have easily have just been. You could have shown him just getting bit under the water and dragged down with his hands maybe
I
coming down, blood circling around, and
exactly
Zephyr kind of just like exhausted, but
right.
it finally surviving. That would have sufficed. That would have worked just as well, or probably even better, in
I
my
think it
opinion.
would have worked better
Yeah.
because it's more focused on him.
Yes.
Like we
Exactly.
said, he's the evil here.
Yeah.
So I think that focus on him probably would have benefited a little
Yeah.
more. So that's a
Sometimes.
very good point.
Yeah. Sometimes bigger is not always better in this case.
Right. Yeah,
All right.
I agree.
So, if we're going to wrap this up and give our ratings, for me, I look at this film and I see a really fun summer action horror shark film. It's going to stand out as one of the better shark films that have come out in recent years. Obviously, if you've watched the channel, if you follow me on my social media, Jaws is my all-time favorite movie. I even have a video on the channel where I take a tour of the Jaws themed bathroom. And it's the 50th anniversary of Jaws. This is a good time for Dangerous Animals to come out. Some other good shark movies like The Shallows and 47 Meters Down, if you want to go a little further back, Deep Blue Sea. Even Jaws 2 was a lot of fun. And this will kind of be, I think, in that range of that. If Jaws is tier one, this is like a tier two horror shark movie. Not everything is perfect. The cat and mouse aspect is a little bit too much. The ending can be a little cheesy, but overall, for me, I'm gonna go a 4 out of 5 star rating for Dangerous Animals. What about you?
I think that's really fair. I also, like I said, I like to approach it with the have fun approach. I think I've said that like 3 times already. But with that said, when we do these ratings, that's where maybe I become a little more critical.
Yeah,
Um, and I just, for me, it's hard because when I do these ratings, I kind of put it on a scale, comparing it to all the movies I've seen, things within this genre,
yeah,
things outside of this genre, and that's where
mhm.
it becomes a little more difficult. And
Fair,
that's just the mindset that I have.
good.
And so I'm probably going to give this one a 3.5,
3 to 5,
so
yeah,
just under you. It was
yeah.
still very
That's
enjoyable.
still really good.
Yeah, I think it was still a good time, and I'm definitely looking forward to watching it again in the future.
Yeah,
Maybe next summer, we have like those shark rotations
yeah.
or the shark movie rotations, right?
It'll fit
Um,
right in there.
I think so. It'll be great.
And
It's always a good
and
time.
I think before we close it out, we have to really point out that Jai Courtney did such a good job as Tucker.
Yeah,
He's done some other things in the past, and his reputation is kind of up or down. I remember him from Terminator Genesis. You remember him as Boomerang in Suicide Squad.
right,
He's kind of always had either a co-starring role, part of more of an ensemble. He was like the player in this. He
right,
played that role of the antagonist so well. He was believable. He was quirky and he was evil. And so much of this movie he kind of carried. If there's going to be a Jai Courtney, starring roles moving forward, I'll be there, especially in the horror genre. I think you did a big thumbs up for me.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. That was great.
All right, guys, have you seen Dangerous Animals? If you have, let us know what you think in the comments below. You can hit me up on Letterboxd and on X. I'll leave those links in the description. Thank you for checking out the channel. You can like it, subscribe, hit the thumbs up, all that fun stuff. But the most important thing you got to remember is to keep
Keep watching
watching
movies.
movies.